the Fellowship of the Bean!
Got any waffles?
Veggietales' terrible Lord of the Rings ripoff. There is so much to unpack from that alone. We're finally talking about Veggietales today, and I'm gonna be honest, I am not familiar with this franchise. Veggietales is, as far as I can tell, a little bit of an odd internet darling. I personally, being British, wasn't really exposed to Veggietales from an early age until just about this year. I'd only really seen the occasional screenshots and memes that didn't make sense to me. And my first real exposure, I guess, was when I was shown a clip from some Veggietales episode or another, predicting modern internet humor.
What does 2 + 2 equal?
Weed eater.
That's a good one.
Starring Bob the Tomato and Larry the Cucumber, Veggietales was a CG animated series first created in the 1990s as a series of home videos released on VHS designed to teach Christian values to kids. Chock full of crazy animated shenanigans and pop culture references, of course. Sounds like it was its own 90s version of Shrek, to be honest. It was also incredibly ahead of its time, with the simplistic character designs coming from the technical limitations of the show, debuting in 1993 for its first episode, a whole 2 years before Pixar would release Toy Story 1. The series would go on to become the most successful Christian children's franchise of all time, and eventually, through corporate acquisitions of course, it would fall under the DreamWorks umbrella. And like all franchises that get this big, there's of course a ton of merchandise. Toys, video game spin-offs, books and comics, and even a podcast apparently.
Hi, podcast listeners!
I'm told this cartoon series was super present in the upbringing of a ton of US kids, with some American fast food companies even distributing Veggietales CDs alongside their kids' meals in the late 2000s and early 2010s. At this point in history, Veggietales, which typically focused on skits centered around Christianity or just straight up adapting and lightheartedly parodying Bible stories, started making direct parodies of existing movies. And oh my god, they did a Lord of the Rings parody.
Oh, my precious!
Well, knock your bow, grab your axe, sharpen your sword, and get ready, because it's time to take a look at the terrible Veggietales, The Lord of the Beans, a lesson in using your gifts. Blimey now. Alright, cooking a bean in the fire with the imagery like the rings being forged in the Lord of the Rings movie. Alright, I get it. We're off to a good start already. Oh, and the title card. Not a terribly great first impression. A tacky 2000s low-budget CG take on the Lord of the Rings logo. You know, I'm getting the impression that this may have been an episode of a larger Veggietales TV show look, you know? But when this was on Netflix, I'm pretty sure this was listed as its own movie independently. In other words, you could expect that we're working with a TV show's budget for this, which, I mean, we'll have to see how that plays out. And from here, we just fade out to a Windows XP background field. A lush green rolling landscape with vague parody Lord of the Rings Hobbit music playing in the background, and a wizard mumbling a song to himself off in the distance. Until we cut over to see our protagonist, and... ah, this is how they're gonna do it. Vegetables with hair. Right. This is our protagonist, Toto Baggy Pants. The first of our vegetables with the most bland, legally distinct parody names you could possibly imagine. Now, Toto is a creature called a flobbit, because of course he is. I guess instead of hobbits being short humans that have hair on their toes, flobbits are short vegetables with hair on their head? I mean, what kind of vegetable is Toto anyway? Some sort of vague asparagus? Toto eventually comes face to face with Grandolph, our Gandalf stand-in, who seems to be a bearded cucumber of some sort. He and Toto just basically wear a one-to-one version of the iconic outfits from the original Lord of the Rings movies. And just like the outfits, the dialogue is ripped right from the original as well, but played for laughs. And I mean a lot of laughs. Like, the two of them laugh for entirely too long. Why are we laughing? What is the joke here? Just that they're laughing? What even caused them to laugh anyway? Is this the next 45 minutes of my life?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
And then we're straight into some fireworks explosions, and hey, it's a party. But for who? And why? This film has got a 44-minute runtime, like it's short, and we need to get through 558 minutes worth of Lord of the Rings content in that span. So I guess we're going to Bilbo's 11th birthday without having met the man before. Oh well, I guess with pacing like this, it just means that this will be an incredibly focused journey. Sorry, did I say Bilbo? Excuse me, I meant Bill-Boy Baggy Pants. Hooray. Wait a second, why is that guy on fire? They're just hopping around and Gandalf is just watching? He's just okay with this? I get this is trying to be played for laughs, but I get the impression that stuff is just gonna happen in this parody without rhyme or reason, and we're just gonna go with it. So, alright then, sure. He hops around with his head on fire, probably lit up by a firework. Would being on fire make him a cooked vegetable? Why is everybody so calm about this?
Well done, Randolph.
Oh good, somebody extinguished him. I was getting worried. And we're immediately off to Toto's uncle, Bill-Boy, who is giving him his birthday speech just 2 minutes in. Man, we are flying compared to the original movie. No time to introduce a bunch of important characters or anything, just straight to the plot. But before we get to it, can we take a moment to talk about Toto's voice? What in the name of bad vocal filtering is this?
Randolph, you're late.
I get that he's pitched up, but honestly, it sounds a little unsettling. Anyway, we cut over to Bill-Boy, who announces to the Flobbits that it's his 1252th birthday because, oh, I see what they're doing here. Doing something almost identical, but then changing very small details so far that we can tell it's a parody, and have people point at the screen and go, ha! I get it. Anyway, we mirror some actual Lord of the Rings dialogue as Bill-Boy rambles on about height, talks about scraping chocolate pudding across ham as dramatic music rises, and then he starts singing. Oh yes, he starts singing! Because this parody of the Lord of the Rings is, in fact, a musical, and the songs are not good.
A little more of this, little more of that.
Bilbo sings, lamenting his unhappiness as he swipes food from the partygoers, asking for the secret to happiness, and the song comes to an end. No, it doesn't. It keeps going. We're not done yet. This did not need a second verse.
Little more of this, little more of that. It only makes you fat.
And finally, at the end of the musical number, Bill-Boy picks up something honestly hard to notice. It's a small item, a bean in fact, which levitates in the air because, well, he doesn't have any hands. Forget the logic behind Pixar's Cars. I have so many questions about this universe. I wasn't exposed to it as a kid. This is bonkers. How do they have clothes if they don't have hands? How do they make fireworks? Why does a vegetable need a monocle? Bilbo in the movie didn't have a monocle. Does this asparagus just have particularly bad eyesight? There's too many questions, not enough answers. Anyway, Bill-Boy tossed the bean into the air, and what do you know? He uses it to summon a birthday cake. Very 2000s. You know, it's funny. This feels like the exact style of early 3D animation that Amazing Digital Circus was kind of riffing off all these years later. That sort of unsettling, uncanny valley, stretchy 3D-ness. In a weird way, I can see how people are kind of nostalgic for this, but as someone who doesn't have the nostalgia for it, it's a lot on the eyes. Let's just say that. Anyway, Bill-Boy runs off and Toto goes looking for him. Cut to Bill-Boy's Flobbit Hull house, where he celebrates that they never saw that one coming to, I guess, sporting the cake and running away? Anyway, he levitates a shirt and gets jump-scared by Grandolph, who was right behind him. Or was it Randolph? It wasn't quite clear. I think his name might be Randolph. Grandolph was nearly an inspired take, but I suppose Randolph is at least close enough to a real name. Randolph now gets accusatory of Bill-Boy, accusing him of being twice as tall when they last met, which, I mean, he is a green vegetable. That sort of thing happens when you eat your greens. I guess he's a cannibal by that logic. But then Randolph accuses him of having too much stuff. Too nice of clothes, too nice of a house, and then he just generally becomes a pest who goes through Bill-Boy's stuff.
And what's this? An espresso maker?
How do you even get in here anyway? Bill-Boy starts to back up, and then, I guess Randolph is right behind him again.
Quite
Run.
He lectures Bill-Boy on there being many magical beans in the world and on how none of them should be used lightly.
Being friends with you can be such a bother.
And honestly, I kind of think that magic beans are kind of an inspired choice as a replacement for the rings in The Lord of the Rings. Magic beans, after all, are a staple in classic fantasy. See, you know, Jack and the Beanstalk and all that. And they fit surprisingly well into the vegetable-based world of Veggietales. Honestly, it's maybe the first super clever thing this film has actually done so far, overlooking everything else. Honestly, I'd love to see a more serious fantasy world that runs on a bean-based magic system. There's something there. Anyway, Bill-Boy drops his magic bean on the table and dumps some exposition, specifically that it's given him everything he's asked for. But he still feels like something is missing inside, so he's leaving to see the world and find it. Unlike the dramatic scene from the Fellowship of the Ring that this scene is borrowing from, and despite the honestly out-of-place ominous music playing behind the scene that matches the tone of the original rather than this film, Bill-Boy very willingly leaves the bean behind for his nephew. Huh.
Farewell, Farewell, Randolph.
Farewell, Bill Boy.
Randolph examines the bean with ominous music playing from a variety of angles, but he's interrupted by Toto and his piercing, obnoxious, artificially high-pitched voice. Curiously, Toto here seems to be an actual child, unlike Frodo from the original movie, which, sure, I guess your demographic is young, impressionable kids. So Randolph tells Toto that his uncle isn't here and left, and Toto immediately knows that his uncle left for good. Randolph then lets Toto know that his uncle left him everything, the house, the stuff, and especially the bean. And Toto literally does not care.
Why would I want a bean?
Why should he want a bean?
Is not an ordinary bee.
Oh, great, they're singing again. And this time it's an exposition dump song about the lore of Center Earth, roughly covering the content of what the Lord of the Rings proper covers in its opening narration.
Long before the Shire was made.
Wait, no parody pun name here? It's just the Shire? Not like Forkshire or something? Oh well. You know, in British it's pronounced sheer. I went to university in Hampshire. I wish we pronounced it Hampshire.
4 beans were given. Powerful beans were given.
And here we get lore about the 4 beans of this universe. The first of which can do things like grow any food or drink you can imagine. The second can change your look, height or hair. And the third which can produce the finest clothes. And the fourth...
Small kitchen appliances.
Huh, anachronistic, but I'll allow it.
Small kitchen appliances?
Toasters, blenders, fried egg deep fryers.
Could you imagine if they adapted the full 20 Great Rings from the original? Wonder how many things they could come up for that. Tell you what, the movie would be a lot longer than 45 minutes for that. Toto asks if his bean is one of those beans, to which Randolph simply replies,
No.
Oh.
and that's because those original 4 beans were cooked into a stew by the 4 fools who got them, since they had no idea what they'd been given. No mention of who gave the beans to them anyway, or the different races that they sent each bean to and all this. Randolph continues to explain that Toto's bean is still powerful. He has another bean, a 5th bean that could give anything to his users. The power of all of the others wrapped into one bean. And they prove it by tossing it into a fire to read its inscription, which on one side says,
If you can read this, you're too close.
Other side.
and on the other, it simply says, use wisely. So the temptation plot of the original is transformed into using this bean too much, rather than the bean itself being attached to an unstoppable, unspeakable evil. And honestly, I kinda dig this. Besides, I shudder to think what a Christian kids film would think is the be-all, end-all, unstoppable evil, you know? The eye of Sauron is just the eye of atheism, you know? So Toto rejects taking the bean, and Randolph tells him to suck it up and take it anyway, since every gift is given for a reason, and we can't choose which ones we get. And I really kind of take issue with this. Like, I think it's totally okay to get rid of crummy gifts, you know? What's Veggietales trying to do here? Raise a generation of hoarders? Toto asks Randolph for help using it, but he says he can't help, telling him that he paid better attention in fireworks class than in bean class. Because, you know, classic. Randolph then informs Toto that he knows someone who can help. The elders of the raspberry forest on the other side of the mountains of much snowier. You know, I feel like they're just giving up on the pun names at this point. These aren't even funny. They're just nothing. There's no substance here at all. Like, sure, I guess these are supposed to be plays on Rivendell and Moria. I'll be honest, I know we're just 10 minutes in here, and not much has happened yet, but I'm kind of bored. We are somehow already 2 musical numbers in, and I really don't care. Maybe I would have preferred the atheist Sauron eye plot. Hopefully they can do something to up the stakes. Enter Dark Lord Scary Man. Yes, that is his name. Our antagonist, who seeks the bean to feed and clothe his armies and ravage Center Earth. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Some lore. I can get behind a good Dark Lord. He just wants to feed his people.
Right now, his minions search for it.
Minions? You can tell this was an early 2000s production.
Minions?
And you know what? I think I'm with Toto here. I'd be afraid to see what a Veggietales minion would look like too. Fortunately for us, the minions in this are actually the best pun in the whole film. They're unnatural creatures forged by Scary Man himself, half spoon and half fork, the Sporks.
They are his utensils, and they do his bidding.
I don't know why, but I kind kind of love this. In a vegetable world, I suppose utensils would be rather evil, wouldn't they? Though it does make you question what kind of messaging this is to impressionable kids now. Forks, spoons, and sporks are evil. Eat the spaghetti with your raw hands. That's what they would have wanted, you know? Well, anyway. So Toto and Randolph set off since Toto was given a gift and needs to know what to do with it, accompanied by a few friends that Randolph invited along the way. Fearless Ranger Earacorn, Sharpshooting Elf Legolam, Grumpy the Dwarf, who I assume they just ripped straight out of Snow White, and Legolam's brother, the other elf. Sure, fine. These characters are all played by other cast members of the classic Veggietales ensemble, as is everyone we've met so far, just dressed up in the Lord of the Rings outfits instead, with Earacorn in particular being played by Larry the Cucumber, one of the main two Veggietale mascots. There's sort of a Veggietales meta-narrative that this is a tacky show within a show inside of the Veggietales universe put on by the Veggietales cast, and that framing device honestly gives it a little more charm. Accompanied by some off-brand Lord of the Rings music, the heroes who make up the Fellowship of the Bean travel into the woods, and immediately we are beset by a toilet joke, because of course we are. Not even 15 minutes in.
Why didn't you go before we left?
The heroes keep marching on, eventually crossing over much snowier as Grumpy complains the whole time and we're hit by another toilet joke not even a whole minute later.
That was it. Now I can go for hours.
The funny other elf has to take a bathroom break on the long journey. Isn't that funny? I can't imagine if the Lord of the Rings had to use the damn bathroom. As the Fellowship moves across the mountain, Earacorn dressed in a heavy winter coat, we cut to the Sporks marching along the land. We quickly cut back to the Fellowship and they fall down the mountain and turn into a giant snowball because, of course they do. Early 2000s low-budget animation at its finest. The snowball breaks against a tree, landing them in the raspberry forest.
Where are all the raspberries?
Not that kind of raspberry.
Uh-oh. Where is this going?
You cannot be serious!
Hey there! Thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come along and subscribe if you're interested in more terrible movies. I reckon this has got quite the cult following to it, but it's very crazy as an out-of-perspective person. But give me recommendations or thoughts on other things Veggietales, and let's get back to the second half of Lord of the Beans, because that's a thing apparently. Of course it's this. These are the elders of the Raspberry Forest, a riff on the Ents from Lord of the Rings, and our introduction to them is Randolph and the Elder just throwing stupidly long, nonsense-sounding names back at each other, which is probably a fine joke on paper, but I don't really think it inspires a laugh here, I'm gonna be honest.
Lord Falaminion Teraglyph, son of Therabil Elithamon.
Anyway, the Elders, the leader of which has a rather impressive necklace, make a raspberry sound.
I believe we must be going. Thank you for your sage advice.
The party members, despite Randolph's warning not to offend them, laugh at that. Our heroes get stuck up on a platform at the top of the forest for making fun of their language, and Randolph remarks that the last person who made fun of their language was up here for 12 years, which is about how long the last 20 minutes have felt. And of course, here comes another musical number, this time sung by Toto, and oh my, what a voice crack.
Then your heart will sing.
This music number is extremely short and really adds nothing to the plot, as you can probably expect. Suddenly, Randolph is approached by a bee, the bee ex machina buzzes to him, and then out of nowhere, an eagle shows up just for that Lord of the Rings eagle rescue flair, only for them to fall on the eagle who merely cushions their fall.
Oh, there's a bird! Let's jump on him!
I feel like this is another gag that really just falls through. And the eagle, he's not a vegetable, is he? Why does he look like this? Either way, he tells of our fellowship and then leaves.
Get your own ride!
After the eagle takes off, the trees awaken and begin tossing berries at Randolph, son of Mandolph, as he and his companions have left his detention. The heroes run out of the forest as the time suddenly shifts over to day, even though this seems like a chase scene that should have taken only a few minutes at most, and they arrive at the Blue Gate leading to the Land of Woe, because, I mean, I get it, Black Gate turns into Blue Gate, whatever, but they didn't even try with the Mordor pun here.
Why do they call it blue, you ask? For the sorrow that blankets the land beyond.
Nah, it's just blue. It's a big blue door. They handled this door more so as a parody of the Doors of Durin from the original Lord of the Rings movies than the Black Gate, but I suppose the Doors of Durin are, at this rate, more iconic, so I guess I'll allow it. The door is marked with an inscription of the Tongue of Woe, and what do you know, it's a riddle. Too bad this riddle is really, really bad. And long, too. Here, I'll read it to you. Maybe you can figure it out. He who seeks to pass this gate, a riddle first must solve. The answers that will seal his fate must all his wits involve. What thing with awesome strength is blessed, yet quakes before the smallest pest? Stands so high, yet sniffs the ground without so much as stooping down. Has no home or chair or bunk, yet holds his bath inside a trunk. If your first guess ringeth true, passage we will grant you. If in you guess, my friend, the door will bar your journey end. Yeah, there is no way that fit on the inscription.
It's a highly efficient tongue. You can fit a whole book on a napkin.
Oh, alright then. Anyway, the answer to this riddle is an elephant, because of course it is. And the film feels way too clever about that solution. In the original Lord of the Rings movies, the door acts to impact a sense of magic into the world and strengthen the world building. Here, it's just dumb and annoying and pads out the runtime. The door opens and inside there's another, smaller door, which only Toto can fit through. The party tells him that he doesn't have to go through alone, Randolph in particular, warning Toto that the lands are full of evil and that nobody would blame him if he just goes home and puts the bean away in a box. It was at this moment I realized I have literally no motivation for any of the characters to even be here other than Toto. Speaking of the other characters, I know I've already complained about Toto's voice, but as a quick aside, I'd like to point out how weird the voices sound at this point. It's like there's an echo filter on everybody's mics. It really sounds like everyone's lines were recorded in a bathroom. And who knows, maybe they were. Or directly in the halls of a church.
A vicuna.
Three-ring binder.
A vespa.
An elephant.
So Toto goes through the door alone, stating the obvious ham-fisted message of the whole production that every gift is given for a reason and we can only choose what we do with them. Everyone else leaves out the other side of the blue gate as it shuts behind them. Then, as the fellowship relents their failure, this guy shows up and sings a totally short, unrelated musical number to anything we've been through at all.
I'm a lucky fella. I'm a lucky boy. I've got a new umbrella, and it's me pride and joy.
Ha ha! Random guy with an umbrella. It's so funny. It's so random. Well, I'm quirky.
I've got a new umbrella.
Umbrella Guy tells them to go to the red gate, which is wide open, and that they should take it. Also that the sporks are there. Umbrella Guy informs them that the sporks are murderous and going to bring back the Flobbit and his bean to their master, dead or alive. And then dashes off with no explanation of who he is or why he's here. Maybe he's a Tom Bombadil stand-in? That's a deep cut character from Tolkien's writing who made it into the books, but not the movie. But sure, I can't think of anything else that this could possibly be a parody of. This guy is just a total random addition. Anyway, the heroes go to catch up with Toto, with Grumpy complaining that tonight is meatloaf night. And he's gonna miss out on it by not going home. And I mean, yeah, why again are you here? Speaking of things that I'm not even sure why they're here or even happening, it's time for a totally unrelated musical number again. This time with a title card reading Silly Songs with Elves. And what do you know, Eracorn is now a different elf despite not being an elf before, and this one is an Elvis impersonator singing a song for elves? And I won't lie, despite being totally disconnected to this entire film, this might actually be the best part. The song kinda slaps.
When I go walking all by myself.
It by far does the most creative things out of any of the songs in this whole affair. All attached to a nice blues shuffle groove. I gotta admit, I like it. I even think the whole gag about Eracorn getting told off by the elf that he's singing about just because they have a language barrier is kind of great. But then Legolam comes in to pull off Eracorn's ears and accuse him of being an elvish impersonator, and the moment is done. Which, mind you, is that problematic towards elves?
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I think it might be. While I do like this song, I think it's horribly placed right here. Any sort of tension created by the sporks being after Toto and the party rushing to the red gate is completely demolished here, and I think that might be actually the point. This is a totally sanitized kids entertainment after all, but when it comes to actually telling a good narrative, it's a red flag. So anyway, Legolam shoots Eracorn with no consequences, and we're back to the Fellowship making their way to the red gate. Contrasted against the march of the sporks, which once again again goes unreasonably hard for the 1 second that it's here, and also contrasted against Toto wandering alone in the land of woe. Oh no. It's time to meet this universe's take on Gollum. Hopefully he looks less cursed than he did in his 2023 video game adaptation. Gollum drops out of a tree and...
Oh, that's gonna leave a mark.
oh. He has a Hispanic accent and speaks in somewhat broken English because, of course he does.
Precious! They stole it from me!
Oh no. I know I said just a moment ago that this is a very sanitized kids entertainment piece, but this is also an unfortunate display of the biases of the people that created this, because this is problematic. Forget about the elvish-ish impersonator. This is bad. Even if this is meant to be a trait from like the larger Veggietales universe, maybe this particular squash always has this trait, but it is not a good look, no matter how deep you know the lore of Veggietales. He wants the ring from Toto and chases him down in a totally tensionless chase sequence.
You are pretty speedy. You'll never make it by yourself.
So Toto takes on the Gollum stand-in as a guide, named for the sound he makes with his throat. We cut back to the Fellowship running again for a shot, and then another, like 3-second shot of the sporks, and it goes hard, as usual. Wait, wasn't that the exact same shot as before? Okay, no, not quite, but it's pretty close. Cutting back to Toto, and gives his backstory that he was once a normal flobbit named Spiegel. Toto recognizing him immediately.
You were that flobbit? That flobbit who bought everything mail order?
Explains that he found the magic bean when he opened a new crock pot, hidden in with the packing peanuts. It changed his life, not working for anything. Unfortunately for him, he proceeded to consume 200 pounds of candy and fell into a sugar coma, and when he awoke 3 days later, the bean was gone. I guess this guy wasn't given his gift for a reason then? Reaching the end of their journey through the land of woe, Toto and come across a very poor village. Meanwhile, the Fellowship make their way to...
Red Gate.
It's yellow.
and the sporks make it here too! Man, I just love these guys. They've done absolutely nothing, but it's honestly so funny when they show up. Our heroes rush the sporks, thinking they can take them in their smaller numbers, but in a classic reversal, there were a lot more waiting on the other side of the red gate, and it shuts behind them. Now surrounded, our heroes prepare to do what all heroes do, and the other elf rushes off to the bathroom.
I gotta go.
This guy stinks!
Because of course he does. We did go too long without a bathroom joke after all. We cut back to Toto, wandering through the impoverished village. He comes to a well, which informs him has been dry for years.
Where do they get their water?
They don't have any.
And we were this close to having an interesting tiny nugget of world building that's not played for jokes, but alas, no. The villagers all come up to Toto, asking him to help him, and I wonder what Toto, the user of the infinite resources magic bean, is gonna do in this Christian story. We cut back to the battle with the sporks. Man, it feels like we cut around a lot, doesn't it? The sporks surround the heroes, and they talk?
Finish them quickly. We've got a flobbit to catch. Finish them.
Man, I won't lie, that voice is rather unintimidating. Either way though, the sporks bend their heads down and attack with their pointy ends, which is kinda clever. There's a joke made by Grumpy at the expense of Legolam, accusing him of not firing his bow, even though we saw him shoot Iricorn earlier following Silly Songs for Elves, except I guess that was non-canon? Whatever. Either way, the sporks get distracted by a nice smell, and you know what? The other elf made himself useful. He baked cookies and offered them to the sporks.
And nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days. I love a cookie.
Ah, what wholesome guys. I take back anything bad I said about them. I love these fellas. We're back to the poor village now, and Toto drops the hardest line of all time.
I don't think these people are evil. I think they're thirsty and hungry.
I mean, yeah, even for Christian kids, there's politics in there. Toto believes that the tree elders sent him here to help these people. So of course, Toto prepares to use the bean to help the people, even though Ahem practically begs him not to and to be selfish, which, I mean, why? It's not like the bean has limited uses, right? Before he gets to decide, Randolph, the Fellowship, and the redeemed Smiley Sporks also now show up.
Look out!
Turns out they love cookies.
Forky could take some notes. Toto tells the fellowship that the elders sent him here to help these people, then BAM! Scary Man shows up and draws a sword on the Flobbit child.
Not cool, man. Not cool.
And then he drops the plot twist of the century. He tells Toto that he told the elders to send him here. He goes on to villain monologue about how everyone has something that they can't live without, be it fame or fortune or a life of ease.
For a certain ancient tree, it happens to be jewels.
Oh yeah, I guess the tree was bedazzled earlier. Still, there's not much room for this plot twist to actually do anything, considering there's only 4 minutes left. After admitting to the bribe, Scary Man tries to school Toto on how he should have used his gift for himself before he lost it and it was too late, and then stealing the bean from him.
Uncle Billboy!
But then Billboy shows up out of nowhere with no explanation and absolutely decks Scary Man, stealing the bean back. Scary Man, cornered, turns to his minions and asks for help.
Cookie Man saying no.
And that's the end of that. Crazy how the non-vegetables steal every scene that they're in. Toto immediately tells Billboy he's less tall than he was before, and I'll be honest, I literally did not notice the difference. Maybe that's because we only knew him for a solid 5 minutes at most.
When you gave me the bean, you lost everything.
No, you don't need the sad music here. He just lost a few inches. It's not much else. I promise inches don't matter. Billboy told him when he left, he was looking for a happiness that lasts, and he found it here, of all places, by helping others. Toto, of course, then gets the bean back and uses it to help the people of the village, tossing the bean into the well and transforming it into a lush land, not terribly unlike the Shire was back at the start of the journey. So maybe it's just colonization of sorts. Really pulled a reverse Ring of Power Southlands with this one. And of course, we've got less than a minute to go, so let's squeeze in one final musical number.
To have a gift is a wonderful thing.
When you finally know what it's for.
And as the ever-annoying singing voice of Toto draws us to a close, joined by our other cast members, the villagers and our heroes celebrate, all eating cookies, of course. Oddly, the music of this song sounds somewhat Christmassy for a moment. Anyway, the song ends, and so too does Veggietales' terrible Lord of the Beans. Quite abruptly too, might I add. Through and through, the Lord of the Beans is relatively inoffensive, but still not particularly great. Plenty of jokes really don't hit the way they intended to. There is a lot of random just stuff that happens without a reason, and the world building is practically non-existent out of directly ripping off ideas from Lord of the Rings. And yet, I can still sense how there's a bit of a charm to this early 2000s Veggietales experience. As much as it's dull and dry in many aspects, it's also lighthearted and goofy. And the fact that Veggietales put this up on their YouTube channel for free wins some decent points for me, even if the quality only takes it up to 480p. And of course, while I come from a background that's very much not going to be on the Veggietales hype train, it's nice to see a little pocket of what is otherwise a giant universe I don't really understand, and I certainly have some interesting side eyes on some of the presentations and messagings and themes that go on that are obviously not really meant to be dissected for kids' entertainment, kind of. But all things considered, at least with the Lord of the Beans, it is just a short, sweet, and concise Lord of the Rings parody that came out a few years after the trilogy of films was completed, and that's about all it ever really needed to be. Of course, there'd be a little bit of a Jesus allegory in there, and if the message for the children they actually present is, hey, it's good to share and help people more impoverished than you, that's great, even forgetting some of the wider contexts. Either way, what a wonderful little romp to try on the side. I hope you enjoyed me using my gift to bring you another terrible movie, but for now, my name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this terrible video. Horrible description, but I guess it's technically right. Do tell me your thoughts and histories of Veggietales. Are there other things of the Veggietales universe you think I should poke at next? Or is this a one and doneer? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I shall see you all in a little bit. Bye-bye!